Breaking news, Mark Carney has banned Rebel News journalists from reporting from the G7 summit this weekend in Alberta. So we have just filed an emergency lawsuit against him with the Federal Court of Canada. That's the same court that slapped down Trudeau's repeated attempts to censor Rebel News. You can see our new lawsuit for yourself by going to our special website, letusreport.com. At that site, you'll find 4 short documents. Number 1, a letter to Mark Carney's Attorney General, Sean Fraser. Number 2, a letter to the federal court explaining our need for an emergency hearing tomorrow. Part 3, the emergency lawsuit itself, called a notice of application. And Part 4, the facts of the case as outlined in an affidavit by Sheila Gunn-Reid, our chief reporter. I really encourage you to look at those documents at letusreport.com for yourself. They're actually really short. The letter to the Attorney General is just 1 sentence long. Basically, here's the lawsuit. The letter to the court is a page and a half. The key sentences from that are these. We are writing to make an informal request for a special hearing to have the application for an injunction heard remotely if possible and in the alternative in Calgary, and decided before the end of business on Friday, June 13th, 2025. And this, there is significant urgency to having the injunction heard prior to the commencement of the summit. The applicants will be significantly prejudiced and will suffer irreparable harm if the motion hearing is delayed. We note that the applicant, Rebel News, has been granted urgent sitting dates in similar injunction applications, resulting in the granting of mandatory injunctions against the Leaders Debate Commission, as in, we need to have an emergency hearing ASAP or we will miss the G7 and we'll never get that opportunity again. And by the way, this delay is 100% part of Carney's scheme because we applied months ago. He wanted to wait till the last minute. Now, the meat of this lawsuit, as I mentioned, is called a notice of application, which is actually quite short, too. These key sentences are the ones that I think of as the meat of it. Paragraph 17, the accreditation refusal is unreasonable and unlawful, is contrary to natural justice, and lacks procedural fairness. The applicants will suffer irreparable harm as a result of the accreditation refusal. 18. Additionally, failing or refusing to grant media accreditation to Ms. Gunn and Mr. Fizard by way of the accreditation refusal is contrary to the principles of Section 2B of the Charter, which guarantees freedom of the press. That's the thing about Carney and his reheated leftovers from Justin Trudeau's government. They just don't care about civil liberties. I mean, these are the people who invoked a form of martial law because some truckers were honking their horns. I mean, these people have no patience for opposition or criticism. That's why they hate Rebel News. And finally, here's Sheila's affidavit, which is the 4th document on letusreport.com. It outlines the facts, including how we complied with all accreditation requirements long ago. Carney was simply waiting until the last minute to block us. Sheila's affidavit is 7 pages of text, plus a few dozen pages with copies of key documents she refers to. So here's the highlight in my mind. And by the way, Mr. Fizard refers to our videographer, Sid, who was also banned from attending the G7 summit. So here's some of Sheila's sworn statement. She said, I do not know of any reason why Mr. Fizard's request or my own would be delayed, except as an arbitrary exercise of authority. Refusing or failing to grant accreditation with only 1 business day left until the summit is unfair to me, Mr. Fizard, and Rebel News, as it gives us very little time for recourse. There is no reason to deny Mr. Fizard's accreditation or my own. We meet the requirements set out in the information published by Global Affairs. There is no basis to refuse or fail to provide accreditation. Mr. Fizard and I, on behalf of Rebel News, seek to promote, cover, and document the summit and seek to be accredited as media representatives and journalists for that purpose. Mr. Fizard and I satisfy the accreditation requirements published by Global Affairs and completed the registration forms prior to June 1st. If Global Affairs, that's the Foreign Affairs Department, fails or refuses to grant Mr. Fizard and I media accreditation, we will be unable to report on important international issues and events that occur at the summit. I believe that Rebel News and its audience will suffer irreparable harm if Mr. Fizard's and my accreditation are not granted to attend the summit. You know, this really is like deja vu all over again. This is the third time the Liberal government has tried to ban us from attending important events. In 2019, Trudeau's hand-picked debates commission banned us from covering the leaders' debates, but the federal court struck that down as illegal and unconstitutional, saying Trudeau had violated our charter rights. In 2021, Trudeau's debate commission tried a second time and incurred the wrath of the federal court again. Well, here we are for a third time, but this time it's Mark Carney's decision, and incredibly, he hates freedom of the press and freedom of speech even more than Trudeau did. I didn't think that was possible. Now, I don't know if you remember, but the last time I personally spoke with Mark Carney directly was on the streets of Davos in Switzerland at the World Economic Forum's annual get-together. You know, Rebel News covers that every year. So this was right after Chrystia Freeland's bodyguards had arrested and assaulted David Menzies for asking her a question. Carney said he disagreed with that arrest. He told me that being in public life meant answering tough questions. He said that to us, Rebel News. Take a look.
This was Canada. You could have him arrested.
Did you see that? Your rival, Chrystia Freeland, had one of our reporters arrested.
I don't think she did. I think
she didn't say a word against it.
If the police tried to arrest me,
it was the wrong thing. It was absolutely the wrong thing.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Look, freedom of the press. I've
We're friends already.
I've been a public figure in Canada, been a public figure in the UK. I know you got to answer tough questions, and you guys, you ask tough questions, and that's fair.
Yeah, it looks like that was a lie, because here we are barely a year later, and he's banning our reporters from attending. So we're going to go to court again. I hope we'll win, but Carney and the Liberals don't take chances. I mean, last time, the Liberals sent literally 7 government lawyers to fight us. Money's no object for them. They just borrow more, don't they? I'll expect they'll need a bigger courtroom this time. If you can help us crowdfund this emergency lawsuit, please do. Go to letusreport.com. That's the same website where all our documents are. Look, this whole thing is so un-Canadian. Banning journalists, that's what dictatorships do, not democracies at a meeting of the great democracies. That's what the G7 is. It's supposed to be a place of democracies. That's why they kicked Russia out. Please click on letusreport.com to see our lawsuit documents and to help us crowdfund our emergency legal challenge. I hope we get our day in court tomorrow. That'll be super fast, because really the freedom of all independent media itself is on trial. It's not just us. Look, I appreciate your help very much. Where's the Canadian Association of Journalists? Where's Canadian Journalists for Free Expression? Where's the Canadian Civil Liberties Association? Nowhere. They no longer believe in freedom of speech, but we do. We applied to get accreditation for several journalists, and every single one of them was banned. I'm starting to think maybe Carney's a bit worried about the questions we might ask him. We won in court last time, and we won before that, but I expect the Liberals to fight even more viciously now, especially since Carney has a minority government, so he really doesn't want any pesky questions from Rebel News. If you can help us, please do. Go to letusreport.com. You can read the lawsuit right there and help chip in. Sure, this is about Rebel News reporters and my friends Sheila and Sid, but this is about something bigger too, like freedom of the press for all Canadians and telling a prime minister that he's our servant, not our master. I predict that not a single bailout journalist will care that we're banned. The CBC is probably thrilled about it. They might have even asked for us to be banned. A lot of journalists will like the fact that we're silenced, but how can journalists taking money from Carney, like the CBC, not be a sign of political bias in itself? Are we more independent than every one of them? Of course we are. Go to letusreport.com, and I'll talk to you tomorrow from court. We've been banned by Mark Carney. What a thin-skinned little man. He's trying to stop our reporters from going to the G7. Help us fight back at letusreport.com. Help us crowdfund our legal bill for our emergency court case. It's letusreport.com.